Thank you all for coming this evening. We have actually quite a bit of information to share with you, some of which, if you were paying attention to our meeting last night, there's a bunch of information there, but want to share it all with you tonight. I'm going to start out with, this is not, I meant to get out there today and I didn't quite, but this was just a reminder of that's what our discharge looks like. And now I just need to find my charts. There we go. So we have been, oh, excellent. We have been, since April, we've been doing weekly lab tests at the requirement of DEC. And I'm sure it's a little hard to see, but the items that are listed on the left are what we were required to test based on our Speedies permit. And the top is the old plant, and the bottom is the new plant. And I just wanted to show, it doesn't quite get all the way to the side there. Here's when the old plant went back online the 19th of May. And so the first testing after that was the week of May 28th. And so we had some things in compliance and a number of things out of compliance. Out of compliance is in yellow. And then the first week in June, we only had one item in the old plant that was out of compliance, and since then we've been in full compliance. So that is very happy news for us, because it shows that we've been figuring out how to operate the plant in compliance. The DEC has indicated that we can now go to twice a month lab testing as of July. So that's where we're at. So I don't have a July report yet. So that's that piece. Happy to answer any questions as we go on that. That's really all I have for visual. So the DEC did an inspection on, I believe it was March 21st. And they sent us a notice of violation on April 14th, and that led to a consent order which we just received. So we have that consent order, I believe it's on the website, and basically it just says what we all know, is that we had a whole series of violations, and that's not okay, and that we need to fix that, and there's a fine associated with it. Our attorney has been in touch with the DEC attorney who sent out the consent order. It includes the volume violations, which are in error, and so we have indicated that to DEC, and so we'll have to figure out how we remove those, because those really aren't legitimate violations. I mean, we certainly have legitimate violations, but those that are not legitimate, we probably should get rid of. The fine that's listed in the consent order is $24,999, I think. But that is something that DEC is willing to discuss and negotiate. So we're in the process of doing that. And so, as I say, the consent order is online if you want to read the details. And so we're working through that piece. And as I say, it's not a surprise. And it's based on the inspection that we had from DEC in March, which was before we had turned away from our old operator and switched over to Delaware Engineering. And I think with that, it's probably a good opportunity to talk about your May report. What are the things that you found as it relates to the plant?
Sure. Some of the stuff we've talked about in the past, and I think everybody here has been to previous meetings. Is that true? I don't want to bore everybody with previous stuff, but like we reported basically, and you can tell by the results. The plant is operating beautiful today, right? And some of the things we found we had to be fixed was we had to lower the through flow. The pumps that were provided, effluent pumps and the EQ tank were too large, the EQ tank was too small. Those are the things we got to fix. Some of the return pumps from the mud well are, again, oversized. So we've got temporary pumps set up now, pumping to the EQ tank. So just doing some basics and identifying some, things that were undersized and oversized in the existing design, and then of course mechanically fixing the old plant is what got it all running. We fixed the UVs, replaced the sand filters, So everything's,
But
yeah.
also there was an issue with the air. I mean, one of the things that when you first came on to take over as operator, there was a question about whether or not the plant could grow the bugs. And so there've been a variety of things that you've adjusted that's allowed for that, and one of them was the actual airflow that was going into.
Correct. So one of the things that's undersized of the plant that was provided is the air, the blowers that provide the air for the aeration tanks. So you're supposed to have a blower that provides the necessary air and a spare backup. It only works if both are on 100% speed. So we don't have a backup, right?
But the good news is we are now successfully growing the quantity of bugs that we need, correct?
Yeah.
Do you feel like everything at the plant now has been fixed, or are you still working on things?
So everything's been fixed, but some things are temporarily fixed, right? So we have some temporary pumps, some temporary piping, temporary EQ tank, which we have to make permanent, right? And that's part of our response to the DEC says, you know, tell us how you're going to stay in compliance long term, and that'll be part of our response.
Why are they temporary and not permanent yet? Is it just because like you're waiting to get the parts or something?
Well, we did a bunch of things to prove it out, right? So we installed it, proved it works, and now it's we have to do, you know, temporary is kind of easy. You buy a pump, buy a hose, lay it above ground, plug it in with a 110 outlet because these are small pumps. So permanent means, you know, hardwire it, put the pipe in the ground. For like the blowers, there are other blowers at the plant that are not being used. So we have to connect the piping so that we have standby, you know, spare blowers.
Is there a backup generator at the plant?
There is a backup. There's actually two.
Do you know why the alarms are continually going off and not alerting anyone? Because neighbors have to call.
Yeah, I can actually speak to that. So that alarm system was set up again as a temporary item to go off when the EQ tank was getting too high, and so we hadn't. It was just a temporary thing and we were actually hoping that it wasn't going to go off. And obviously it has, but it's actually worked. We are very grateful to those who have called. We actually met with our security company on Friday to come up with a permanent plan, and Jake's looking at a temporary that will call him instead of just blaring.
Okay, good.
We are aware that it is a temporary one. We are aware that it's very much not an ideal scenario, but it has allowed us to not overflow, which is definitely not ideal.
How big is that window for the alarm? If the alarm goes off after an hour, is it a problem, or how much time does it give you to catch it?
Quite a bit of time. So there's buried EQ tanks and surge tanks, right, that were provided, and then we have a 3D, I forget what it is, 3,500 gallon above ground tank. It's like a sludge holding tank, right? Mm-hmm. It's sitting there empty and it gets pumped into it. So when it starts pumping into that means, you know, alarm goes off and people have time to react. So it's worked out to be several hours. Okay. Yeah. But of course it depends on how much flow is coming in at the time.
Has there been a new inspection recently? I know there was one coming up.
Actually, very recently.
I was just going to say,
Oh.
you are a plant. That was going to be the next thing I was going to mention. Go right ahead.
So they came today.
Oh.
Yeah. So DEC came today for an inspection. As I said, everything's working the way it should today. Everything's being fully treated, clear effluent going out, both sides. So they left very happy. DEC did.
And obviously we'll get a written report, which may have additional things, but they did actually come today. So we had actually reached out because we wanted them to come back, and so we're happy to have them come today. And then the next, I don't know if you have anything further on the plant side. I think that, you know, obviously we have lots of gory details if you want to go into it. The next item that is up for us, as you know, our arrangement with Delaware Engineering was meant to be temporary. And so we went through a process we contacted 6 different operators. We got 3 proposals. One of those operators was the Dutch County Wastewater Authority. I actually had a lengthy conversation with them yesterday and had a previous conversation. And just to clarify, the way the Dutchess County Wastewater Authority works is they own and operate. So if we were to go with Dutchess County Wastewater Authority, we would be transferring all of our assets to the Dutchess County Wastewater Authority, and they would then be in full charge. We would have, it would no longer be anything the village has anything to do with. And that's not something that they do quickly. They go through an entire process. They hire an outside consultant to look at the whole system, et cetera. So the sewer team that we have, which is Robert, myself, Jen, who's our utility clerk, and Jake Smith, who's our DPW foreman, we met, we discussed, and we felt that the Dutchess County Wastewater Authority was not the best choice for the village now. All of these decisions are, when we say that we're going to a permanent operator, it really isn't permanent. We're going to a contract, and that contract will end, and we will have an opportunity to, over time, decide to go in a different direction. But we need to make a change now. And so we got 3 proposals. We got one from H2O Innovation, we got one from North Dome, and we got one from SEBI Environmental. And we reviewed all of those. I did some reference checking, speaking with folks who actually work with each one of them. And in the end, we selected H2O. And it's H2O Innovation Operations and Maintenance LLC, I believe is the formal name. And we are going to do a 12-month contract with them. As you might imagine, we're all a little gun shy, and so we'd like to start that partnership and see how it goes. But we selected them. One of the key things that was included in that was their professionalism. They're a larger firm. They have a separate safety division. And we know that they will bring to us a level of professionalism that will be very positive, we think. And they will be our certified operator. They will be on site. They will be directly overseeing the village employee who will be doing the day-to-day, et cetera. So that's how that works. And I can introduce you to Roy Rosenmuir, who is the vice president for H2O, and Les Kuhn, who will be the senior certified operator. So,
My title's Senior Area Manager, but I will be the Chief Operator for the system.
there you go. So these guys are here. And actually, if you may have noticed, they've been to a couple of these in the past too, and they're still here, and they still gave us a proposal. So we are, the plan is they will start August 1st. They will probably start, bringing them in and working with them going forward. And as I say, I did speak to several folks who work with them. I think one said, best team ever. They couldn't say enough good things, so I'll let you know who that is so you can give them a call. But we're pleased to be able to move to a place where we are doing standard operation, and as we've talked about before, we'll be talking to Delaware Engineering about setting up sort of and whether they are random checks or formal inspections or what have you, but we certainly want to keep Delaware in the mix with an outside eye to how things are going. And obviously the test results are part of it, but honestly we had good test results a year ago, so it's more than just the test results that we need to make sure that things are operating as they should. So that's frankly very exciting news for us. We have these 2 here. Does anybody have any questions or things they'd like to ask?
Hi. Do you have experience with these BESST systems? I think that's what the current system is. It's the best system, right? Is that not the right?
Pure Stream Best, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Probably about a dozen of them within the New York portfolio.
Okay. Any around this area? or-
In the Hudson Valley, I would say probably about 3 or 4 in Orange County are the closest.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been working with the Pure Stream systems for probably about, I'd say around 30 years. So, in varying degrees of age among those systems.
And do you feel like they work better or are more challenging than the traditional gravity flow?
It depends. Every facility is slightly different. Many of them we've had to make mechanical modifications to. Sometimes these plants work great in a vacuum, and then in real world application, not so much. Seems like this
Well, I was
might
going to
be
say
some of that.
similar to what we've
Yeah.
just gone through.
For sure, yeah.
So it sounds like they might have more ongoing maintenance costs, that may be something that needs to be planned for.
Possibly, sure.
Well, I think for us, now that we are confident in our proper operation of the plant, I think now we can actually look and say, okay, what does it take? I mean, it's going to, any plant needs regular operation, regular maintenance, et cetera. And so now that we are moving into a more normal phase, we're not testing things, we're not trying this, we're not fixing an old plant. We are now able to go forward to say what is the regular ongoing cost of maintenance, of operation and maintenance? What is that? I mean, we have a general sense, but now I think we can do a better job of being tighter on that. And then we will obviously work with our engineer and with our operators to look forward to say, when should we expect to need to replace the sand filter, to redo when are the pumps going to go, and we need to replace those, and just come up with a long-term capital plan so that we know what's coming in the future.
Will you also be advising on expansion plans or anything like that, or is that?
Probably suited to tell. I wouldn't say that's really in our wheelhouse just yet.
I think the notion, as they come on board, as they get themselves comfortable with our plant and operating it, we may ask them questions or from their point of view based on what we're looking at, but that's not currently part of their purview.
Okay.
In your proposal, how many hours did you estimate a month being spent on this plant?
So we propose the minimum standard. Now we expect that, especially in the early phases of this relationship, we're probably going to be there far more frequently. But the minimum standards are fairly uninteresting for a chief operator. You have to be there 30 days out of a 90-day reporting quarter for a minimum of 2 hours per day. So it seems pretty scant, and we expect to be doing significantly more than that, especially early on.
And how local are you?
Oh, Les and I are incredibly local, and his other project manager are local. Well, we both live in Red Hook. So
Oh, you're kidding?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's what he meant by incredibly
Yeah.
local, yes.
That's actually
That's
why
really
I
cool.
started
Okay.
coming to these, because I read it in
Sure.
the Daily Catch, and I said, oh, this is happening right in our backyard. We should probably check out what's going on here.
And your local headquarters are in Poughkeepsie, correct?
Yep. Yeah, and we operate around 200 facilities in New York. We have around 100 employees in New York, 800 nationally. The company's about 1,300 globally. But a pretty heavy presence in New York. New York is super decentralized, so you have a lot of small systems all over the place. We work with approximately 50 municipalities and been in business since 1991.
Thank you.
So we're excited. A little terrified, but excited.
Oh, don't say that. It's gonna be great.
Can I ask you a quick,
These guys have done all the
another,
hard work.
one last question? A lot of research I'm seeing from like current best practices kind of advocates for more decentralized systems for rural and smaller municipalities, and that often these like centralized ones have been a little bit oversold or greenwashed on their effects, especially for small communities. Is that what you're seeing in your experience in this area, or?
No, I wouldn't say so. It seems, and hopefully I'm answering this correctly for you, these situations that you are seeing here are not very typical. I think that by and large there are a lot of really small municipalities that have, even facilities that are doing 10,000 gallons a day up to 8 million gallons a day, and it's not entirely uncommon for them to be run successfully. Does that answer your question?
Oh, well, I was just kind of wondering about, like what's typically done or the recommended plan. We can talk after though.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Okay. If there aren't any more questions for our new operators, obviously this will not be the last opportunity, but as I say, we're excited to be working with these guys, and again, looking forward to the partnership, and obviously they have a lot of experience, and we think that will just benefit the village. Couple of other items. I can touch on the fund transfer question. So our auditor had reached out to the Office of the State Controller, and the Office of the State Controller basically said, your question is legal in nature, and our office cannot provide legal opinions. However, we have logged your concerns and have added the information to our files for consideration when developing future assignments. And so we had asked, this came in July 1st, we had asked our attorney then to give us a legal opinion. And he's just sent me something, and I just need to confirm that that's not a draft. And once I have that, I'll put it on the website and share it with everybody.
Did you contact the senior attorney for the New York State Comptroller's office, or did you just contact the regional one in Newburgh?
So I asked our auditor to contact the State Controller's office, and they did that.
But in Newburgh, or the one in Albany with the senior attorney info I gave you?
This person is from New Windsor, who sent this email to our auditor. I can ask who our auditor talked to. I personally did not speak to them because I felt it was important for those who do this work professionally, should be the ones to talk to the State Comptroller. So as I say, I'm not sure who actually spoke to them, but that was the response that we got. And so, as I say, I am expecting a formal response from our attorney.
I would still like to just recommend even publicly that your attorney reach out to that senior attorney's contact I gave you, because they did extend an invitation to you as well as to the village attorney to contact them. So it's a direct information from source to source. So
Sure.
I would really recommend doing that.
Happy to do that, but as I say, you know, we certainly contacted the State Controller's office. I assume they talk to each other, and they don't just respond
They
from one to the
don't.
other.
They have a line between.
Well,
the
obviously they
roles.
went, yeah, obviously the controller said that this is a legal matter, and they obviously chose not to
Which is
provide
why
legal
the
opinion.
attorney should have been contacted.
But the State Controller's office is saying we don't comment on the legal matter. So we could talk to their lawyers, but that doesn't mean they would give us a legal opinion. But yes, I'd be happy to follow up. As I say, I felt it was important for those who do this work as professionals to have that conversation. So, but as soon as we get our attorney's formal response, I will put that on the website and share. The EAF question, we received a draft, but not the formal response from the engineer and our attorney, and so that should be coming hopefully in the next week or so.
Did they take comments into consideration that were submitted, or did they just go through their own review process?
So comments, yes, absolutely, yes. All of the information, all the comments, those were all forwarded to both the attorney and the engineer, and those were all reviewed.
Was a environmental scientist consulted as well?
I'm
The environmental science that works with us, yes.
So they did weigh in on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So hopefully, as I say, hopefully we'll have that in the next couple of weeks. Wetland. So the wetland, couple of things on the wetland. Wetland delineation is, we actually have had a wetland delineation just done. The issue with that is that it's only doing one side of the wetland. It's not doing the full wetland. And I did meet with a wetland restoration plan expert, and in that conversation it became clear to me that the opportunity that we have, and Kat, I think you and Zoe at one point had been pointing out some grants, and I will say I now have the brain space to say, wow, this is really what we ought to do. I'd love to meet with you guys to talk about a grant application for looking at the wetland. We as a municipality can look at the wetland on our property. I'm not sure how grants work when you're dealing with private property, but I do think that this is a perfect opportunity to apply for a grant to do some testing of the health of the wetland, and then to put together a plan to improve the health of the wetland. And I think it was Karen Schnelling McDonald who I met with, and she indicated that she thought, you know, you can have a project that just keeps getting bigger. She thought that taking the wetland that's on the village parcel out to Benner Road, that would be sort of a logical piece to look at, which made sense to me. The issue that we're going to have is how do we deal with the private property. And so that's part of the piece that we would just need to figure out in terms of how to manage the grant application. But I'd love to work with you guys because I think that's a real opportunity that we have, is to A, understand what the health of it is. And the other is there are other inputs into that whole area. And I think in talking about erosion, it looks like the erosion is most likely coming from the bank off the side of Red Hook Estates. Because as you get major storms, that's really where a lot of the silt's going to come from. There isn't a lot around the discharge of the wastewater treatment plant. It's all in the same plane. Whereas that's where, or on the other side, there are some banks on the other side as well. So that, I think, is a real opportunity for us to take a look at. Because making that wetland healthier is going to be good for a whole lot of reasons.
And we would definitely welcome that. and we'll
Great.
be
I'll
happy.
send you an email tomorrow, and we'll set up a meeting, because I think I couldn't find, I was looking for it quickly to see if I could mention it specifically. I know you guys had come up with a couple. I think there's at least one or two that are due in mid-August that we should be able to pull something together for. Would love to be able to do that. So, and then in terms of expansion, I know that there was a newspaper article about $1 million grant that was given to the village. I can tell you that that's not direct to the village. I believe that is a grant that was applied for by the county. I had been in contact with the county beginning of the year, and they had talked about a $500,000 grant. And what we had talked about, there were some parameters around those grants, and I said, the first thing we need to do is to do further engineering. And they said, oh, we think that'll work. So I assume that that's what that is, but the county has not contacted me, and I've been trying to get in touch with them. And I think the other half is specifically for RUPCO and the affordable housing project up in Cookingham Farm. That is what I believe it is, but I don't actually have any further information on that. That grant did not come directly to the village, just to clarify. And the expansion work, clearly we need to look at and make sure that we are doing things the way we should, that we are not doing anything that would make things worse in the wetland, and that we look at options. I know in the past options were looked at. Certainly this is the opportunity. This is where the engineering funding is what allows us to do the work with the engineer to continue to look at that. And so that's, and there are two fundamental benefits to having a municipal wastewater system. One is we are on an aquifer, and a municipal wastewater treatment system is known to, because we are managing the system, we are required to keep it up and running, that it does protect the aquifer on which we sit, which is where our water comes from. And then the other is when you have a municipal system, you can build more densely. I mean, dense, I always get a kick out of the word dense in Red Hook. We will never be truly dense, but it will allow, for example, it will allow the RUPCO Cookingham project to make their finances work so that they can provide housing that is affordable by those. You might also refer to it as workforce housing, but without the numbers working. And if they have to run their own wastewater treatment plant, the numbers don't work out as well. So it would give us an opportunity to do some additional housing developments that we desperately need. We do not have enough inventory. We don't have enough housing that is at a price that the average people can afford. And so that's the other benefit to having and to expanding the wastewater treatment plant.
Well, one of our concerns about that was that with the current plant sits only 10 feet above the water table according to the site plans. So if you have this expanded plant right there and it happens to fail again, it could be a much larger risk of contamination versus having decentralized units, which could also allow for water reuse and conservation. So the RUPCO property is actually a prime example of how decentralized units could be actually beneficial with reusing wastewater for the land right next to it that Hardy Roots cultivates. Same thing for the high school and middle school, where their wastewater treatment could go towards, watering the natural grass fields that they're just redoing. So I think there are also opportunities to look at it the other way, I think there is an assumption that bigger is better, but it's not always the case. And you could have, mitigating risks for larger problems if you don't have all of your eggs in one basket. So since this is a finicky system, I mean, they just said that they have to sometimes make modifications to these things. I think it's really worth considering and looking at all approaches.
Well, and I think the opportunity to continue and engage and have the conversation, because the system that is being looked at for the expansion is actually not the same system that we have with this new plant that we did. I don't know if you want to talk at all about the NBR and how that works and what
Yeah,
makes
I
it.
can get really geeky on wastewater plants for you guys. But
Bring it.
so the existing plant is a packaged activated sludge plant, right? And activated sludge, like we've talked before, includes, the magic bug, right? So the main ingredients is a tank that's aerated, the bugs are, and the bugs eat our waste and generate clean water. That's the concept. Now, how you package that is there's dozens of variations, right? So what we have is the PureStream best plant. The default to their process is the clarifiers. So after you have an aeration tank, you have to separate the sludge, which is the bugs, from the clean water. And that's done in a clarifier. And that's kind of like these guys have the pictures are over there I'm pointing to. Like the worst stuff, a shallow hopper clarifiers upflow, which is like made to fail, right? Which is what's turned out to be true. So anyway, so in a larger, in a conventional plant, activated sludge plant that meets all the codes, you'd have larger clarifiers that are deeper, and that gives more space and depth for the sludge to separate, and they can handle higher flows without blowing solids up and over, which is what's causes the sludge to go to the stream. So one of the advances in activated sludge to not have to rely on clarifiers to separate clean water from bugs is MBR technology. So that's a membrane bioreactor. So instead of having a clarifier, you have a membrane in the essentially a membrane, which is a filter, and an activated sludge tank. So the clean water goes through a filter to go out. So it takes away the reason that was developed is because you can treat more wastewater in a smaller space. And you accomplish that by not having the clarifiers and the membranes. But the benefit of that is you don't blow solids out the stream. It has to physically pass the filter before it goes out. So it's kind of like guaranteed clean water.
So that's part of, the fact that it's different technology that we're using is part of what gives us a little more confidence that going in this direction is going to be better. But again, this is part of the process, and it's conceptual at this point, and it's really and I'm hoping that the grant that was just announced in the paper is this grant for the engineering, because that would enable us to start down that geeky path of looking at the different options and the like.
Wait, was it going to be the best one originally? Like, was that the original plan?
The proposal is to go in an MBR. That was the
was that the
recommendation.
original one?
Yeah.
Or,
Well, no,
When you
for
say
the
original, what do you
phase,
mean?
right?
I mean, like a year ago when there was some report done for looking at expansion. I thought
MBR.
It was the MBR.
it was the
yes.
MBR. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's-
And part of that, as Robert mentioned, the benefit is you can do more in a smaller space. And so it was looking not to have an enormous plant, but to have one that was the most efficient we're not looking to take a huge amount of space.
And would that replace what's there now, or just be added in addition?
In addition, because the other issue is the original plant, the original 25,000 gallon per day plant is, at the end of the useful life. We talked about this, right?
Mhm.
Like having a car with 200,000 miles, right? It's not going to last long. So that city's got to be replaced somehow. So the upgrade was to do, that goes away, we keep the 50,000.
So
and
the
we
old plant would be,
converted to something useful.
yeah.
Which we, right at the moment, that report concluded with the best use for that plant would be converted into a sludge holding tank. So then the existing plant that was at the time new and working great would remain, and then we would add an MBR for the 250,000 gallons capacity.
And the tank holds sludge and it's carted away?
So yeah, so the process with activated sludge is, it's an organism, just like the grass garden, right? So you have to, we call it wasting. So you have to waste so much sludge, and then that has to be carted away. So the way that the current plant, it wastes to a tank, and then septic hauler comes and pumps that tank out.
Are you also looking or considering PFAS removal?
So right now, the DEC doesn't regulate PFAS removal in wastewater. The new permits that have been going out require PFAS sampling, and to see to have a background of what's there. And even in communities where there's known PFAS in the wastewater, then we worked with them and they just got a new speedies permit. It wasn't included as an effluent limit. It was included as to monitor. So the regulations aren't there yet.
But that doesn't mean we still couldn't do it, right?
But you can do it for sure, yeah.
So is it something we could consider, or?
So we were just talking about that. So a PFAS treatment is like a whole plant to itself. So it'd be another $4 or $5 million on top of what you're talking about. Right?
Really, it'd be $4 million to treat this, like the wastewater?
So because you got to treat the wastewater, and then you got to treat, because nothing in wastewater, activated sludge, filters, removes PFAS, right? So you got to treat the wastewater, and then remove the PFAS. So like we just did water treatment plant to remove PFAS for $4 million, and that was treating it was 140 gallons per minute, which is 90,000 gallons per day.
So that was the cost of only the plant for PFAS, not just the general.
Right. That was
itself.
adding PFAS removal to an existing water treatment plant.
Good.
So that may be the other balance to whether or not a smaller sort of local plants to then add that expense to each one of those versus having it all together. It's probably more efficient to do it that way. So that may be part of the conversation in terms of what the best balance is.
Yeah, or it could be a smaller cost if it's a smaller system. I guess it's something to look at to weigh the pros.
I'm sure there's a base cost to no matter the size, and then then you amortize it over a greater quantity if it's bigger. But there's no perfect system, as we know. And so it's going to be sort of taking all of that into consideration and looking to see what's the best choice. So that's what I had for this evening. Happy to answer any further questions, take any comments.
One last question. I saw the original senior housing plant, in addition to getting a speedies permit, had a wetlands permit, and that if you change the amount of effluent going, you need to get a wetlands permit too. It doesn't look like one was gotten for this last expansion. So will that be done, and will it be done again for any new expansion happening?
So for, I don't know, I can't speak for the one that just got done, but for the upgrade that we're talking about, for the 300,000 gallons, that's part of the speedies permit process. Any permits that are required, which could include the wetland disturbance, whether it's in the buffer or the actual wetland, would be part of that.
I don't think it was a disturbance, it was just to discharge into the wetland. With a wetland.
Well, yeah, so the actual discharge is the speedies permit, and the speedies
Right.
permit could include other stuff, like the wetland, so it'd be like part of it. But
So-
the DEC will tell us what they want.
So the old one that had the speedies and a separate wetlands permit, you're saying that those two would not be required under this one because one could be included within the other one?
Well, again, we'll follow the lead of what the DEC wants, but I assume before they issue a speedies permit, if there's any wetland disturbance or work within the buffer, they'll require a wetland buffer or disturbance permit.
Yeah, I was told that if there's a change to the effluent, then a new wetlands permit is needed.
And the wetland permit comes from DEC?
Yeah.
So the process for what we're referring to as the new plan would have gone through the process with DEC for the speedies permit. And if they had required some adjustment to the wetland permit, they would have required it at that time?
No, it's a different office that does the permitting for wetlands versus speedies.
But
So
I
they're
would
not gonna
assume-
flag it if it's needed, you'd have to go to the wetlands department. I'm learning the DEC is a little you know.
Yeah, well, like many
Finicky. So you-
organizations, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, as I say, that whole process certainly happened before I was here, so I don't know what they went through.
Right.
If there's a wetlands permit that's required, we'll do a wetlands permit. I mean, that's, that's absolutely how we will operate.
Yeah, I think it is worth looking into because, the wetlands have their own set of criteria, and I don't know if they have effluent limits, which are different from the speedies that manage the actual effluent. So, just wanted to flag that as a.
Sure, I'll certainly look into it. Thank you. Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
Oh, I was just gonna say, when did you say the environmental assessment form re-review comments or updates will be given?
I don't have a specific date. I'm
Okay.
hoping it'll be in the next couple of weeks.
Okay,
That was it.
oh, okay.
That was it, yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you all very much for coming. I will acknowledge that I have not been as quick to put things on the website, but we will continue to have that page and add things to the page. Actually, I think you asked for the temporary test well sites, and I actually do have that. It's in a report, and before I rescan and send, it may actually be on our website, and so I'll just if I can move it to that look. Well, we'll have to think. Maybe we'll have to think about an organization of the page. Maybe we have sort of the regular operations page, and then maybe we do a separate page on the expansion. That might be logical. We have a separate page for the expansion? We do. Okay, so the engineering report from the past project would have had that information in it, and I have it in paper. And so I will either transfer it to that page or I will just scan it and send it to you.
Okay.
And those sites were all intended to be temporary. They're basically these, and correct me when I'm wrong, but they're these little white tubes. And some of them are still there. Like there is one at Abrahams Park and it is still there. I don't know if it's still functional, but that is, they were all intended to be temporary. Just because I know you had that question about the test wells.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thanks.
Okay, well, with yes.
I mean, since you mentioned the test results, and I'm sorry, I came in 7 minutes late, so this might have
That's
been
quite all right.
addressed, but has there been any recent testing of the Sawkill downstream, sort of in the Bard College area, in terms of the cleanliness of the water? Is the water now
So
safer,
you have a
or-
perfect opportunity for tomorrow evening. So the Sawkill Watershed Community Group has been testing a variety of sites all around the Sawkill.
Mhm.
And you may or may not know, and this is where I got this chart from. This is our wastewater treatment plant. This is the sub-tributary.
Yeah.
It goes across Benner Road, and this star is where the Sawkill test site is. And so tomorrow night, they're going to be presenting results from additional lab testing that they did on 17 sites, and I believe they added a site right here. And so they will have, and I know that they'll be talking, they did test for PFAS. I'm not sure what else they tested for, but tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at Town Hall, they'll be making all those presentations. The Sawkill Watershed Community also has a website. If you just Google Sawkill Watershed, and they have a lot of that information.
So they'll be posting those results presumably at some point.
I would assume so, yes. And for us, all of our testing that we do is right at the it's probably right about here. It is literally just the discharge that's coming out of the wastewater treatment plant. So that's what we test. And so when you get here and you get here, there are other inputs, which I think, as you heard, I'd love to do a full study of the wetland to say what's coming in.
Mhm.
I mean, we know up here, one of the things that's coming in is there's a drainage by Garden Street off Route 9, and there's piping underneath that comes through UBS and discharges here.
Mhm.
We also know that there's I believe, several stormwater pipes from Red Hook Estates that come out in various spots along here.
Yeah.
So,
I just want to say the one by my house too, I looked at it the other day.
Mhm.
It's like kind of disintegrating and stuff is falling in, which might block it soon.
So I actually talked to our DPW foreman about that, and we will have a conversation, because I
Okay.
believe he's aware that there's a fix that needs to be done.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily a simple one, so
Okay.
it's something that he is,
Aware.
when I mentioned it, he's like, oh, yeah, that's something that needs to be addressed, so we'll have a conversation on that. But in any case, that's why I think sort of a broader view of the whole wetland area would be a really good project. And again, for us, as the village, this is the village property, so that's what we have purview over, and then it goes on to private property.
And at the point of discharge, you were saying that it's currently meeting the standards that are.
The discharge limits, right?
My happy chart today is not happy before. There it is. So, nice thought. I think I turned it off. Maybe I did. Probably. Or we can just watch Netflix, that'd be great. There we go. So these, so that's the old plant, this is the new plant. These are the items that DEC requires us in our Speedies permit to test for. The yellow is out of compliance. You can't quite see my blue, but it's basically since this is June 5th, and June 5th there was only one item in the old plant that was out of compliance. The old plant went online May 21st, back online May 19th. And since then, everything's been in compliance. And so we had been testing every week, and we've now gone to twice a month. So that really is, week after week, seeing positive results is showing us that all the things that have been done and tested are leading to proper operation of the plant. So we are officially in compliance at this time. And I think you heard that DEC came today for an inspection, so they were able to see where we came, where we were in March and where we are today. So that was a good timing. Happy to have them come. So I don't know, happy to do these events. These evenings. I'm not sure we need one a month from now, but I'm thinking maybe in 2 months. Maybe, so what are we, mid-July, so maybe sometime in September. I don't know.
Well, you're meeting separately, right, with Kat and Zoe?
So a couple of meetings.
Yeah.
One's going to be on your discharge at the back of your backyard. The other's going to be related to the. If anyone else is interested in talking about a grant application for this wetland look and restoration plan, Again, it's testing the health of and coming up with a plan to make it healthier. Would love to have more the merrier. So if you're interested, please feel free to shoot me an email, mayor@redhookvillage.gov, and I'll include you in that meeting. But I know that Kat and Zoe have expressed interest in the past, and I know that they could really add value and help us get that grant. So yes, and we do have the webpage, and we also do our regular monthly board meetings. I am doing the sewer report. And so either you can come or watch the meeting, or you can look in the meeting minutes. There's our reports are there, and I try and give a pretty detailed report on what's happening with the sewer plant.
I would say September meeting's fine, with the caveat that if there is anything major that happens, that you could either send out an email or put it as an update on the sewer operations page.
Well, and I think the opportunity, again, if we're not meeting, then the updates become that much more important. So, and I'll do a follow-up update on the website as well for people who aren't here to see. So just also so that it's there for the record when people are looking back. So thank you all very much for coming out, and we will continue to do our due diligence and hold these guys' feet to the fire to make sure that the operations continue to go as they should be. So thanks very much. Feel free to hang